Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Summan?
Summan? People always I always heard it pronounced wrong then.
So have I.
Yeah.
I don't think any person that wasn't my family member or relative has pronounced my last name correctly. Right. It was always Summan or Summan.
Summan, yeah.
Summan was a old Robert Hullett thing. But yeah, it's just Summan.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably why I remember it that way.
Probably, yeah.
Gosh dang it, Hullett. Yeah, and that's also another reason as to why I gesture and let them say it before I say their name wrong. Yeah.
That's a safe bet, yeah.
Yeah. All right. My new first question, which took the place of my old first question, which is, how do I know you? How do we know each other?
I think I met you first through your brother because our brothers were friends.
Yeah.
Your older brother, Jesus, and my older brother, Manish.
Yeah.
And I think we were going to Catfest.
Yeah.
And then he was like, hey, he's going to bring his younger brother. I think he's around your age. I was like, all right, that's cool. And then we're like, hey, man, this is pretty cool. And then we saw each other in band.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that was the first time. I was like, on, dude.
We saw Korn and Slipknot.
Korn and Slipknot.
Yeah.
Gross, dude. Shudder now. But I think I was like, man.
I mean,
it's one of those people.
Korn's pretty good, but I don't know. I didn't even listen to Slipknot then. I don't listen to Slipknot now, but it was a decent show for the time that we stayed.
That's fair. I think that was my first big concert. So I was like, oh, this is loud.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I got a lot of beer thrown on me as a child, but
yeah.
It was hard.
That, and then your brother's girlfriend at the time got peed on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, somebody was peeing on her leg.
Yeah.
It's marking the territory, dude. People do that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway, we know each other through band. We both play trombone.
Yeah.
I mean, if you call us playing trombone anymore, I haven't touched that thing in
Oh, I touched it maybe 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I moved it from my house to my garage. But I was like, man, it'd be really nice if I could play this. And then I put it up. So, yeah.
I mean, we never really tried that much. So, all right. So the real first question is, what do you do?
So I'm a crime scene technician at the for the state of Oklahoma, essentially.
Cool.
But I get, I don't know, rented out, I guess. It's through contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And basically, I assist crime scene investigators.
Cool.
Yeah, through their jobs.
So what does that entail?
How graphic can I get?
You can say anything here.
Sure, all right. So basically, I guess I'll give an example that happened.
Right.
It's probably one of my most memorable ones because it was the second day on the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And this was about, probably 8 months ago or something like that. It was a while ago. And we were over there, and there was some crisis happening in some guy's car. It was this Nigerian student or something like that for the University of Texas. He was having something in his car with his girlfriend. And our response team, or the Houston's response team, went over there. Mm-hmm. And that situation was escalating, and they said they'd heard gunshots and there's a body or something. So we went out, we're in preparation to prepare for that. And we had found out that he had shot his girlfriend in the car, but he was still there, just oh, what do I do? What do I do?
Right.
And then I get there and I see that he's still there, and I just remember that it wasn't that far. So if you can kind of visualize, I was kind of at a street corner and he was about maybe 60 feet away from me in a parked car. And all I remember is him just kind of looking up at us for a split second. Everything goes slow. And then he just puts a gun and then he just shoots himself right there. And I was like, damn, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? But then it kind of sank in. The weight sank. I was like, oh man, the gravity of the situation. And so I was like, oh, okay. I think I was prepared for this. So we were like, oh my God. So we made sure everything's good. Can this guy be, resuscitated or anything like that? Mm-hmm. We checked his pulse or whatever. He had passed. And checked the status of the girlfriend who'd also had passed. So then this is probably the most like awakening moment, but they're like, all right, boys. And my agent in charge just kind of snaps his fingers. And then we had a couple of people run back, grab some body bags, and they just like picked them up and then just threw them on the ground like they were trash, like right into the bags. Man. Because at that point, as soon as the trigger pulled, they were objects. They weren't people anymore. Yeah. And so as dark as it is to think about something like that, you have to think about it as a worker for that, because the mindset to like, man, I'm dealing with death and destruction and evil like every day of my life, to kind of realize that, okay, this person's no longer living. It's just a body. It's just an object. I can take that home with me much easier. Sure. So I was like, wow. So I was helping this big guy into this body bag. And I was like, dude, I was only here like 2 days. They just needed me to help for like the morgue. But they're like, oh, we're short on people. Come along. And so that was like my firsthand experience with that. Yeah. So I just kind of helped them pick up body bags and occasionally clean crime scenes. Yeah. A lot of lab work. I just like write a lot. Just documentation through different items and all that stuff. So. Yeah. Damn. That's intense. It is. You have to have a really dark sense of humor. Right. I mean, how do they even prepare you for that? Because you did forensic science. I did at UCO. Yeah. do you want to know how I got into forensic science? Sure, go for it. I love stories. Do you know who Leah Parker is, by any chance? I don't. Leah Parker was this girl that I had a crush on, and that I was 9th grade, she was in 10th grade, and we were in our like computer applications class or something like that, and I had the biggest crush on her. And she said something one day that she wanted to get into forensic anthropology, and I was like, whoa, what is that? And it's like the study of the human remains and the bones and stuff like that. Okay. And I like Googled it because I was like, what is that, dude? I'm going to try to impress her with all this knowledge. Right. And then I started looking that stuff up. I was like, yo, forensics is really cool, actually. I might want to do that. And so it's just because of like this crush that I had in 10th grade. Now I'm like certified and have a degree and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah. That's pretty badass. It really is. I mean, like really a lot of times, the main driving motivation for men is just like, I want to get chicks doing that. But like, again, so like when I saw the research, it's like, yeah, this is what we do. We search crime scenes. And so the motivation through that is like, oh, look, I get to help by being like a detective kind of thing, even though that position exists in a different way. Yeah. And then so when I went through my whole forensic program at UCO, all the professors had really interesting courses about like criminal procedure, how to prepare crime scenes. Right. And they're really practical. Like a lot of the tips that they use are tips that are used like everywhere. And I know that may seem just kind of like matter of fact. And like, of course everyone knows that in common sense. But it like really was. He's like, yeah, we don't store crime scene bags in like our special bags that has the logos on it. We put in like plastic bags and things like that, or like paper bags, like takeout. And you don't think about it, but like, yeah, they use it because it's convenient and it's easy. Yeah. And so I was like, man, these guys are smart, Right. So what was it really that drew you into doing forensics? I think the big thing was originally when I first saw something like that, because I personally, and I'm super proud of this, I've never seen a single episode of CSI. Good. I'm so glad, dude. But there's like the whole, like a mystery of who did this, Oh, there's this big crime scene. There's a lot of blood. There's evidence. But who did this? What happened? And so my work line, I guess, my goal is to get into crime scene reconstruction somewhat. That's kind of an area I want to focus on. Right. Because I've been taking some classes for it to kind of get better at it. But so in these kind of classes, we see these just like a messy stage, right? Think of like a daycare, right? Just after all the kids had just run rampant and then nobody cleaned it up or moved anything. So there's like a couple of chairs that are knocked over. There's vomit in the corner. There's a bunch of tears, like what happened? So you get to establish these connections and these links to these different situations and things like that. And it's just fascinating to me.
It's like a big puzzle.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's the game of life, you know?
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, right. It's the best puzzle.
Right.
Or the worst. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it as glamorous as like Sherlock Holmes makes it out to be?
Absolutely not. No. These crimes don't get solved in 1 hour.
Right.
So your commercial break and start. No, these don't even get solved most of the time.
Right.
And it's rough to say. And no, I could say that stuff. I don't think I'm obligated under anything that there's no like non-disclosure agreements or anything.
Sure.
But these are
You're
just
not
like
naming names
just
or
general
specific,
fact that
yeah.
a lot of crimes go unsolved in terms of like real like murder and mayhem and stuff.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's a lot of cool gadgets we get.
Oh, okay.
There's like this like Spectron machine, I guess. It's like this 3D laser gigantic ass box that you set like in the middle of a room, like a giant open room, and then you let it run for about like 4 hours, and it like 3D scans the entire room.
Damn.
And you can just view it like on a computer. You can't it's not on like a little table where you can interact with it with your hands and move it.
No, I mean,
yeah,
we're not
CSI
going all
magic's
Tony
not
Stark
there.
in here,
But I was like, oh man, something like that really exists. That's really cool. But they never use it because it's so impractical. But we just take pictures.
Right. I mean, sure.
So that's most of my job too. I take a lot of pictures.
Yeah, that makes sense. What other cool gadgets?
Honestly, that's probably the coolest thing. We get like fingerprint kits and things like that.
Yeah.
So we get our cool little powder and we have oh man, my agent in charge is gonna be so mad that I forgot this name. It's essentially like a super glue fumigator.
What?
I know that sounds odd. Okay, so imagine finding like a broken bottle that has like a bloody thumbprint on it, right? That's used as a murder weapon. So we can preserve that. If it's like a good enough print that we see, like if it's a latent print and we can physically see it, we can like keep it forever. And the process of that is that we take that bit and we put it in this kind of like, I don't know, think of it as kind of like a vertical microwave. And so we put it in there and it mists super glue essentially. And so the super glue would lay on top of the print and then harden it so we can manipulate it and use it without the fear of destroying it.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
I thought cryo accelerate, something like that. Sorry,
bunch of big ass words.
Sorry, Paul.
To say something simple.
Yeah, but it's really neat. I was like, man,
yeah.
I put my hand in there once, and it was really cool because, I mean, it was terrible. It took me like 20 minutes to get off, but they're like, yeah, you should do it, man. It's fine. I was like, it won't hurt? They're like, no. So I did it, and then it just fumed, and it just felt like wet water. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it just started hardening, and I couldn't move my hands because it got so tense.
Oh, damn.
And so we had to start running off with all this like nail polish remover and stuff.
Right.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. But then there's like incredibly low tech stuff. Too,
oh yeah, like the pencil, which is also the best tool that we have.
Oh yeah,
we use it for everything, man. Writing notes, picking up stuff too. Like we don't want to contaminate something, so we just use like the back of our pencils.
Yeah. Sorry to like reduce your entire profession into like a thing, but like, did you ever play L.A. Noire?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah, you know, I actually haven't beaten it.
Ah, that's fine.
But I got pretty far. But that's more like.
It's also set in the 40s, so
right.
Their level of technology.
There's like the crime scene thing, but there's also this like criminal profiling as a person, right? So we use this all the time. We have like these human lie detector people. They take all these courses and things like that.
Sure.
So they read facial expressions, flesh. So I thought that portion of the game was pretty interesting to see. Like you can see, oh, this person's kind of. You know, veering off in the distance, maybe he has something to hide or veer that way. But also, again, this is a video game with really scripted sequences, and there's no real weight to it.
Sure, they're actors.
I appreciate that kind of level that they're trying to convey.
Plus, like the motion scan stuff being.
Oh yeah, that was so good. They look so good. Let's go, Rockstar.
Yeah, they actually updated it, and so like now you can get it on newer consoles.
Oh, nice.
Plug, I guess.
Rockstar, sponsor me, please.
Right. Anyways, so why do you think like this sort of detective thing has been so like glorified in the, we have stuff like CSI and Sherlock Holmes and stuff, and so
That's a good question. I don't know what came out first, but I think it's just like the start of the idea of a mystery. You have a buildup, and then you have a lot of suspense, and you just have a lot of pieces, right? You don't know what happens with it. But then a moment happens, and then you can see all the pieces come together. And that satisfaction in itself is really rewarding.
Yeah.
So if you apply that sort of formula to like a job as, you know, putting pieces together, right? I personally, like, I don't want to simplify it that much, you know, makes me feel terrible, but like that's essentially, you know, we're just people who put puzzle pieces together, and then once we finish the puzzle, we're like, man, what a good puzzle. But most of the time there's like 30-40 pieces missing all the time.
Exactly.
But, it's pretty nice.
And
there's no box to look after, you know, so we don't know what it looks like, so it's just kind of a guessing game.
That's kind of the problem too, is that like with a puzzle, like a real puzzle, there is a solution.
There's so many moments of frustration, more than like I can really explain for something like this. But the way to get over it, and I hate to say it in this sort of like non-empathetic sense, is that just don't worry about it. Like, oh, this person tragically died somehow, but we just don't have enough evidence, so we have to move on. So I'm sorry for all these people, or friends and family, but no, that's it. We could do all we can do. Move on to the next puzzle.
Exactly.
So, but it's the payoff. I'm pretty sure, like mostly like game design, right? They spent years building this stuff, and once they release it and play it, it's such a brilliant experience.
Right.
So that's what I think generally. I think the payoff of pretty much anything is just the reason why we do what we do.
Yeah.
I like it, although I haven't been in the game long. But
Sure.
But I mean, I've had my share of wins, right?
Sure.
And completions.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how like free you are to specify stuff. Again, if you're not naming names or something, I hope it wouldn't get you any legal trouble. But so like, what sort of stuff happens around here?
Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, like our region, I guess, is pretty decent, right? We, as crime scene technicians, we get contracted out of state a lot too.
Okay.
Because we have a big pool, right? And we're always needed. And so Texas is a lot of where like the super shady stuff happens. Texas, I've seen some things in Texas.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, like that story you just told, like what the hell?
Right. There was like this like shotgun thing with this. Well, Texas has a lot more suicides than I thought in Oklahoma. It's kind of interesting. I've only done I've only worked about 3 suicides in Oklahoma. And like they were all like really, it's kind of sad, but like I feel like Oklahoma's much poorer because like these people have used like kitchenware and stuff like that to like cut their wrists and just like really odd ways of like, and I don't want to be as, you know, not sensitive and saying like they end their lives poorly.
Sure.
But like I meant like fiscally poorly, like with no money, as opposed to people in Texas I've seen where this guy shot himself in the head with his like double-barreled shotgun, but it was like gold-plated and things like that. What? And he owns so much, like he had all this acres of land, all these different guns in his gun rack or whatever. And I always see it like there's always like these 2-3 story houses in there, as opposed to here it's like these 1-room shacks, which I can understand like the reason and the why I guess they can do what they do, but there's such a difference in region of how people deal with different things. And so I feel like Oklahoma is pretty odd because I thought, well, I don't know, I wouldn't want to delve into that, but like once I get into my own personal things, I don't want to agree with that. I don't want to make a full statement, but because I try to stay as objective as possible, because you have to, you know. Yeah. but I've done one murder here, Yeah, there was a shooting at like Portland and I don't know. But yeah, it was in Portland, and there was a guy who was shot and he had died, and this was probably, I think the records came back as there was like gang or something. I don't get those reports, right? We just deal with what happened. We don't get the specifics. So, I mean, either way, I can't even name names because I don't know who they are, right?
Sure.
I'm just like, oh, black male, 18, right? That's it. That's all I have. But that was, that's pretty typical. But I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary before.
Right.
But
what, and then I guess, because again, there's like, all these murders and stuff, but what's like the mundane stuff? Meth labs.
Oh, man. Don't get me started on meth labs, man. Oklahoma's a king of meth labs.
Right.
We had 3 people burned down in a meth lab like 3 months ago.
Jeez.
Just guess where. We're like, oh, man, a meth lab in Oklahoma. Where would they burn down to? Edmond.
What?
Right? Yeah, all those Edmond soccer moms, they got to get their kids to soccer, go to Target, pick up some meth.
Right.
Yeah, this happened in Edmond. This was a nice-ass house, too. And then it just combusted and all the people working inside.
Some Heisenberg stuff going on.
I was like, why would you get property in Edmond?
Yeah.
Like, go to the boonies, right? We're in the land of meth, right? It's Oklahoma.
Right, yeah.
There's better places. Trust me.
Yeah.
Like, I interned for the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, going through from my forensic science program. So I've learned a lot of things through there too, and specifically like drug related things like that.
Yeah,
and how we have like I-35 and I-40, all these interstate highways, and how much they traffic drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we are right in between, so it makes sense that all that stuff goes through here.
They had one bus they had, man, it was like nearing like 50 kilos of cocaine that they had busted. And this was the time I was working there because it was so big. It was a news story.
Yeah.
It was on like channel 9 or 5 or something. And I was the intern, and there was one other person who was from OSU. And we were in the evidence locker, and we had a person talking about all the bus and things like that, because he was one of the K9 patrol. And so we had the Channel 9 or Channel 5's anchor, who was a girl, and then a cameraman. And so we had these bricks of like blow just wrapped in like saran wrap is what it looked like. And one of the agents were like, okay, we need you not to touch it. I know generally when you want to talk about something, you want to grab it, but do not touch it because it will seep through the like cellophane and get in your fingers and through your pores. And so she's like, yeah, that's fine. And so I was standing there, and I was specifically instructed. My one job was to make sure that she does not touch it.
Right.
So I was sitting. I was I was standing kind of behind her, out of the shot. And so she was just like, yeah, today our hardworking people at the OBN did this and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, because of this, and this substance. And then she was going in there, and I was like, oh. So I like ran in there, and I like kind of grabbed her hands. I was like, I'm sorry, I was instructed you can't touch this. And she's like, yeah, God. And she just starts swearing and stuff like that. She's like, do it again, because it's a package, so they can just record it. So like, she's like, and she's so angry with herself. And I was like, please don't be mad at me. I'm sorry. I'm just doing my job, please. I was like, I'm trying to save your life, okay?
Yeah. Well, plus then she'll be like high as balls on cocaine on her job. So yeah, maybe you did your job.
Right. I was like, I'm glad I did, but I was just like, it's weird. I was like, just don't touch it. Just don't touch it.
Right.
What does she do? Like the one thing that she was instructed not to do, she's like, I'm just going to reach in.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, Jesus, it's so much. Okay, so on my other questions, so how are resources limited regarding certain investigations?
It's a pretty interesting question. I don't get paid the big buck big buck to
$1.
just one, just to like pretty much so we have a couple of people in our departments and things like that organize all like the logistical assets of what we need and things like that, what we bring out. Other than that, in terms of resources, like I kind of said earlier, we make do with what we have.
Sure.
We use like takeout boxes for evidence bags and stuff like that. And it's just because it does the job, you know. Like we get thrifty when we need to.
Sure. And that's the thing that like I feel like people might not understand is that like these things are like state run or
right.
So you can't like you're not gonna have CSI level stuff going on because this is
like I think our department has maybe 2 of the little Spectron laser things,
right,
and we don't even use them.
Yeah,
and they're like so much money.
Yeah.
But like, why do we have it if it takes so long to set up and stuff like that? When we can just have like a smartphone camera take a bunch of pictures, right? And that does the same job, much quicker, cleaner, different angles and things like that. And so we're good with what we have generally.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we could use more money to get more people, like hired more training. Generally, I feel like I personally would appreciate that. I think I could use more generally, or just like a brush up and stuff. But in terms of like just general resources when we go out and stuff like that, we're pretty good with what we have. I think
it's good.
Yeah,
because I mean, there was this thing that I remember Sam Harris was talking about how this one person that he knew had her house broken into, and they stole a bunch of stuff, including her iPad. And so, like, she, you know, as it happens, she called the cops, and they're like, oh, yeah, we'll look into it. And then she realized that she could track her iPad through the like find my iPhone sort of thing. And so she like called the cops and was like, hey, look, I can tell you exactly where they are. And they're like, we can't take that information. Because for whatever reason, this is from what I'm remembering of a story that someone else said. But so hyper anecdotal. right. But like, basically, if every single person that had every single bit of evidence that was like to every single tiny crime like that was like sending it in, they would have no resources to be able to like, all right, we have to stop this petty theft, this petty theft, this like we're trying to solve like, you know, whole crime rings of things. And so if every single person was just like, hey, someone stole my iPad, then it would you don't have enough cops, you don't have enough people available to look into these things.
See, I'm all for vigilante justice, man. If somebody wants to dress up as a bat, beat up some bad guys, by all means, dude, we need it. The police departments will thank you.
Hopefully,
just don't kill anybody. That's a big thing.
Yeah, if you're gonna go Batman, go full Batman.
Yeah, tie him up, leave him on like lampposts. I don't know how he does it, but he does. Just, you know, put a little sign on there.
Right.
You know, I kicked a cat or something, and just tie him to the post. It's easy, and then we'll pick it up like it's garbage collection. You know.
Yeah, and we live in Oklahoma, and everyone has guns and stuff. So it's not like, we got vigilantes,
right? And I'm glad. Like I haven't dealt with anything where yet, at least where there was. And this, you know, I feel like it's pretty important to talk about. But so we're in the era of personal firearms and concealed firearms is pretty normal, especially in the state of Oklahoma.
Right.
You know, we're so gung ho and stuff like that. And gun. I see what you did there. But we have all these citizens walking around carrying their own firearms and things like that. And I, in the like 9 months that I've been working, haven't seen or read or heard any incident of just two people getting in some sort of personal conflict, you know, not a crime or anything, and then having like a firearm discharged. Right. So I think, you know, even with all the gun control and people saying, oh man, people are going to take our guns, or we shouldn't even have guns in the first place. It's so dangerous. people are being really responsible with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was super surprising to me.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it was a little surprise. Benefit of the doubt. I was like, okay, hopefully these people don't do it.
Right.
But we've had nothing over it. And I was like, all right, let's go Oklahoma.
Yeah,
let's go with the responsible citizens.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
hopefully that makes someone feel a little bit at ease.
Yeah.
Like, okay, these people have it, but they know.
Yeah, but to counter that, you've been around in Texas and dealt with a lot of suicides.
Yes. So they just probably go south.
Right. Yeah.
In both ways. Both ways. Yeah. I'm glad you got that.
I'm sorry. I don't we continue adding this disclaimer, but we don't take these things lightly. It's just got to have some sort of sense of humor to be able to cope with these level of things.
And I feel like I deal with it pretty well, right? Like I can crack a few jokes, but with these guys, man, I love some of these people to death, right? They're the best, but I remember walking in one room and one of my technicians, he's laying on the ground with the pretty recently deceased body, trying to just get the perfect selfie with this person. And he's just like, hey, Sonny, can you help me with this angle? Like, get off the floor. Come on. Yeah. I understand we're done, right? So this is not on the job. The last thing we have to do is pick up the body and move it. Because once we pick it up, that's it. We can't disturb a single thing until we start disturbing things, right? So this was at the end of the day, and we're going to do. The last thing we have to do is pick up her body, check underneath where she was laying down, and then just transport her back to the morgue. And so he's just sitting there, just trying to get this picture, and I was like, dude, come on, dude.
Right.
You can do anything else with that. Yeah. That's not normal. That's not normal. And if you meet him on the street, you would never think that.
Right.
He's just the most normal, chill person.
Right.
But then when he gets to work, he just does some weird, kind of sketchy stuff.
Yeah. At some point, I guess you just get desensitized to it.
Absolutely. I remember getting desensitized in 6th grade when one of my friends sent me a video of Eugene Armstrong. He was a civil engineer from America who was in Afghanistan or Iraq. And then the Taliban captured him and beheaded him. And then that video went on those really gore, Live Leak and things like that where you can see it. And so my friend's like, hey, check out this video. And then I watched it. And I'm like, why'd you send that to me? I'm in 6th grade. Why'd you send that to me? He's like, I wanted you to feel the pain that I felt. That's what he said. That phrase is burned into my head. I was like, dude, why? So I'm pretty sure because of that is the reason I do forensic science now. That's a piece of shit. I'm so mad. I'm so mad right now.
Right. Well, gosh,
right? It's so rude.
Right.
I could have had a good life, a life without blood in my hands and things like that.
Yeah.
But no. You show me one Taliban video in the 6th grade. And I was spending $40,000 on an education about blood and crime scenes.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
One last one on this. I guess sort of specific, but how is law enforcement different from crime investigation?
It's if you want to visualize, think of it as a Venn diagram. So there's law enforcement in itself, and there's what was your other category?
Crime investigation.
Crime scene investigation in itself, and there's an overlap. So most crime scene we'll just say a crime lab or something like that. There's a lot of citizens that that's the role, I guess. These are non-cleat certified, just general workers.
Yeah.
As opposed to law enforcement where they're cleat certified, they went through the academy, training, they carry their badge and firearm. And there's overlap, detectives status, those kind of things. Those ranking officers, they branch into the crime scene field and things like that. But there was actually a recent wave, and we were using police. We is just America as a whole in terms of law enforcement. But law enforcement used to train their current police officers through crime scene forensic techniques.
Right.
And that was costing a ton of resources. That was pulling officers away from the beats and things that they travel.
Yeah.
And so there was a shift in dynamic, and they introduced just forensic science as a division for just citizens as opposed to law enforcement. So you don't have to be CLEAT certified. You just have to, pass all the necessary background checks and all that. But you don't have to go through the academy or anything like that. And it puts the weight off of the police officers to allow two parties to do the same thing.
That makes sense.
Because crime scene investigation forensic science is after the fact.
Yeah.
So usually there's no danger aside from like biological contaminations, things like that. But other than that, it's like
meth labs.
You wouldn't be in a life or death situation facing, like a crazy person or something like that.
Yeah.
But so that's why it's allowed to, like, okay, people in the forensic field, the crime scene field can do that. And so there was the overlap of people who are CLEAT certified, and they can do that, and they get paid the biggest buck.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
One day.
But you got to do both.
But you have to do both for a pretty long time.
And the other
for a pretty long time too. Yeah.
But I mean, those are also the people that have seen some shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like law enforcement has a little bit more rough because the image for law enforcement isn't the greatest right now. And I feel terrible. But I mean, some police officers do, in fact, deserve everything that they get thrown at them because there are, for sure, some scummy cops, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're all great, but there's also like a ton more great cops, right? So it sucks that like it's tarnishing all of it as a whole. But then the people who do that should be held responsible.
Of course.
But nobody ever says anything about the forensic side. So that's pretty good, except Joyce Gilchrist from Oklahoma.
What?
She basically like doctored documents for about like 20 years in terms of, and she changed like the outcomes of people's cases. Like, hey, no, we found this. She's guilty. She's not guilty. She was the reason people were like, I don't know if she had anybody put to death in terms of sense, but so many people went to jail because she said, oh yeah, I found it or whatever. And turns out she was lying on all of it.
Damn.
So it was insane. Yeah, she was a woman from Oklahoma. Yeah, I was like one of the first people we learned about in one of my forensic classes. So there's a few bad apples.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a special level of an asshole, though. Like,
exactly, right? They just try to build that case like, oh, yeah, my clearance rate is through the roof because I made it up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's the worst.
So there's power there, but.
Sure.
I don't think I feel terrible, but I don't think now currently and the people who work there, they're not like smart enough to abuse it in a sense that benefits them personally.
Sure.
Right? If there's some greater good or something, maybe, right? If they just really feel that somebody's really scummy, they can like plant a gun there or something like that. But like other than that, it doesn't benefit yourself personally.
Yeah.
So in a world where it's pretty selfish currently, I would say, there's no reason to do it.
Yeah.
As opposed to a police officer who has a ton of discretion and a lot of power.
Yeah.
I can see how easy it is to abuse that.
Officers could plant evidence, I guess.
Sure,
themselves.
I understand. But I'm just like, the range of power is a little bit higher.
Sure. Yeah. Anyways, I might ask more questions on that a little bit later. But first of all, let me take that good turn on the second half of the podcast. And what is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
It's a tough one. My parents were both Hindi, right? That's the religion because they're both from India. I never practiced any real religion, I don't think. I used to go to their church and all that stuff, but I didn't understand it because they all spoke Hindi. So I was like, okay, these guys are talking and singing sometimes. That's fine. Yeah. But I think overall, I consider myself just agnostic. Just like I don't deny or accept.
Sure.
I just if I could oversimplify my religion in a sentence, it would be God is out of sight, out of mind.
Sure.
So that's pretty much. In terms of spirituality, I'm not a spiritual person. I just I feel like my life's too busy to kind of worry about that. So I don't know. I never focus on it. I tried like meditation once, but if that somehow relates to spirituality, other than that, it's pretty empty in there.
Which is fine. Like, not everyone has to be freaking
right. I understand.
like Gandhi all the time.
I mean, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel jealous kind of sometimes. Like, people have faith, and I'm like, man, I wish I could feel like that. Like, this acceptance kind of sucks.
Yeah. But then I watched someone get beheaded one time, and
Right.
it's gone.
I'm like, there's no God. There's no God. What is that? God, hello, are you watching? But
so, I mean, how has your parents sort of being Hindu affected that in your life and sort of growing up with that?
there was a few moments where like I would always talk about my parents in terms of like, hey, I don't believe in God, or I don't think he's real, or I just don't care. And my dad was fine with it. He's like, you can believe what you want to believe.
Sure.
He didn't have time for it. But my mom was like, wow, what are you talking about? You can't say that. Things like, I was like, well, I mean,
but I don't.
that's where this questioning phase kind of came in pretty early on, you know. Well, if he, where is he? Well, show me proof, that kind of thing. And so that's sort of like scientific method of approach kicked in early, and I think that also maybe swayed in terms of like where I am today in terms of profession as well, because it's really matter of fact and things are pretty clear. But she was always, but she's fine now. She's like, yeah, I don't care what you think. I'm too old. But but in terms of that, yeah, they were supportive all the way throughout. They didn't really care, but it's something I've never talked about like regularly to them.
Sure. Yeah,
because I knew what they practice and they knew what I didn't practice, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
So.
And a big reason as to why I ask about spirituality or religion and that, because it definitely affects sort of how you interact with people or just in your life and in your profession or whatever that is. And so generally more so for morality purposes. And so I understand that like there's this concept of like crime and punishment and justice and like all this stuff going on in forensics and stuff. And you also did criminal justice, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how does that connect? How, I guess a religious person's, I'm not religious, a religious person's question to that would be like, how can you have a sense of like duty or punishment or justice without like a belief in
I understand
God?
what you mean.
Yeah,
okay. So like, how can a person be moral without like being religious?
Yeah.
Because I guess the whole notion of like morals are given by God, right?
Yeah.
As a
theory.
Right. So that kind of, it's not going to sound that intelligent, but I feel like if you just don't be a dick to other people, I feel like religion doesn't have to be involved, right? Yeah. If you just treat other people the way you want to be treated, I think that's objectively nice, right? And to like, what's Aristotle's golden mean of just don't be too harsh, but don't be too sensitive. But I mean, I feel like if someone's just born into the world, right? Let's say without any influence, I guess.
Yeah.
And they had parents that were like, hey, you should be nice to people. Why should I be nice to them? Because they'll be nice to you. I feel like that's the most matter-of-fact kind of common sense takeaway. So if we want to look at it in this, like a lot of people like to compare, like a nature versus nurture. If we use nature in the sense it's like God-given rights and God's morals, as opposed to nurture is the environment around you that's grown up. It can be both ways. It could be, okay, you should, when you're born, you should, listen to your parents and then go to church and then get those values taught to you. But the values are taught you is by greater power. Like he says these things as opposed to he being your parents in a nurture sense, like they say you shouldn't hit anybody, or you shouldn't do this or that or something.
You trust their authority because they have more experience than you do in life.
And then, and that's something that's an effect that you can get like reciprocated immediately, right? If you go outside and you say hello to somebody, they'll probably say hello back. And so that give and take is almost instant, as opposed to, going outside and just, hey, fuck you to somebody. And then you get that back. And you're like, wow, that didn't feel very good. Maybe I shouldn't do that. And that's something you can't teach, that feeling that you get. So I feel like it's super nurture dependent, and that's morals are something that's completely taught, I believe, personally.
Yeah.
Because I've met some people who cannot distinguish right from wrong, just because of some of the things I've dealt with.
Right.
And it's not so much that even that they're wrong. It's that they've lived in a condition where their ideas were shaped by people who had authority over them, being their parents or a very controlling boyfriend or a girlfriend or things like that. And so that would be the counterpoint, I guess, to like the whole morals and values things. But that's just a good point to show how easily a person can be manipulated in terms of morals.
Exactly.
For the good or for the worse. So.
Yeah. And then how does that view go into like justice? Like what is justice? Justice.
I leave justice more so to the law enforcement side.
Sure.
Because they are the people at the end of the day that like catch them or find the person, right? We're the bat cave, right? The crime scenes investigator squad.
The guys in the chair.
Yeah, we're the bat cave. We're the chair. And then Batman and the police are one and the same. They put in all the legwork. We just put the pieces together, and then we send it back, and then they complete it.
Yeah.
So it feels good generally. Like, I mean, personally, it's like, I have a pretty strong sense of justice. I guess that's why I'm in this position. But I don't think it's any more or any less than most people.
Sure.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I feel like someone who's a musician or like an accountant, if some of their someone they knew had passed away because of a murder or homicide, they would want to catch the person responsible, right?
Yeah.
Whether, if that person gets, something as like controversial as like a life sentence or the death penalty is up for debate, but the person wants to be caught and put away regardless.
Right.
So I think like through our department, things like that, everyone's pretty unified in that department.
I mean, there is a level at some point where the justice might go like overboard. And so like, while there are some people who are like, oh yeah, like you want to catch the murderer, like that makes sense.
Right.
But then it's like, right. And then you hang them in the town square for everyone to watch. It's like, whoa, that's a little bit more than just stopping a murder.
I guess if we like, we're somewhat utilitarian. So the police want to do like the greatest good for the greatest amount of people within reason. But if it gets to the point where the ends don't justify the means, so that's how we factor in like torture, the interrogation. Would ripping a person's fingernails off really justify the means or the ends in terms of how we're doing it right now? And
not that they actually do that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. My department just looks at dead people. I'm not CIA or FBI. I don't know these, but I'm just in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Then justice can be skewed, and I can understand the possible hypothetical uses for something like that. If like there was a movie called Unthinkable with Samuel Jackson. It was a great movie, but it was like. They had just caught this bomber or whatever, and the whole movie's about the people torturing him to find out where the bomb is. And the bomb was like in like the heart of New York or something. So there's a ton of people that live there. But every like passing moment, like the torture gets more and more intense and more crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you're watching it, you're like, oh, I really don't want this bomb to go off, but they shouldn't do that to that dude.
Right.
Like, so it really plays in your kind of compass in terms of how much is okay.
Yeah.
Does
And that
he-
movie is
yeah.
not to be confused with Unbreakable, also with Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He wasn't Mr. Glass in this movie, let me tell you. But police officers, I guess, law enforcement, I feel like that's the easiest way to go like astray in terms of because they have the power, they have the discretion, the authority.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to, they're like, okay, I know this person. He does this all the time.
Yeah.
This guy breaks into all these houses, or he keeps beating up his girlfriend and she's just not saying anything. If I just do something now, it won't happen again.
Yeah.
But there are rules and there's the laws, the policies and things like that.
Yeah.
So he has the ability to just beat the guy senseless, but that's not right. That's not moral. You know, these are the kind of things. Even though some and a lot of people, and maybe even I in the situation would agree with them, but if we're flexible on things like that, what else can we be flexible about? And then how can we establish like a set parameter of how we deal with things?
Yeah.
So it's really risky, I guess, in this situation.
Yeah. So is there like do you skew one way? Do you like tend to feel like, yeah, maybe I would beat that guy in the face just to find out where that bomb is?
I think like most people, it depends for me. In the movie, I kind of agreed with them, but there was, can we put like a spoiler alert on this? Because
I guess, yeah, a spoiler if you haven't seen the movie.
Have you seen it by the way?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Do you want to?
I don't mind.
Okay. So the reason like the movie is called Unthinkable or whatever. So they're just torturing this guy or whatever to try to find this bomb, and they can't do it. But it turns out like this dude has a family. So they like kidnap the family, and he has like the wife and like a 6-year-old daughter, and they like bring him inside the room or whatever. And he's like, "There's 2 bombs in here," because he had sent like a confession tape or whatever. He's like, "You need to tell us," and he's like, "I won't." So one of the agents like slits the wife's throat.
Damn.
Yeah, and just kills her right there. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I feel. Maybe he shouldn't do that. But also, this bomb should be stopped because now you're looking at like millions of nameless people or one person that you can physically see and you've already established a relationship with.
Yeah.
And then he moves on to like the daughter, the 6-year-old daughter. And then again, you're like, oh shit, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But then also millions and millions of people. A or B, A or B, A or B. And so it was really tense. It was like a stressy situation. But then, he's like, okay, I'll tell you. And then eventually the person caved in with that. But at that point, I was like, no, I don't want him to kill the girl. I feel like the interrogators are the bad person of this movie. Even though this person's by definition a terrorist and planted a bomb. But at this point, because of how they were playing with justice, they skewed it to where the people who are trying to do the greatest good for the greatest amount of people were evil. And so I thought that was super unique in the way they did that. I was like, no, she didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong.
So I mean, there's a sense of like, you only want to punish the people responsible.
Sure, absolutely. I don't want to go around just beat the shit out of somebody. Like you'll do some crime someday. I don't know when, but that's that's for this is not like Minority Report or something.
Yeah. And I mean, we're kind of almost into that point because like I don't know what sort of there have been, I guess, certain investigations or certain things like not crime investigations, but like I think Facebook's algorithm was able to tell whenever a woman was pregnant before she knew that she was pregnant.
How?
Because of the things that she was like, I don't know, the way that she was behaving and the
like
way,
posting?
like the things that
Holy
she was
crap,
searching.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but like kind of terrifying. Because in the same way, they can also sort of Minority Report, like,
right.
Oh, this guy seems like
He's unstable or something like that.
He's been sharing a whole lot of, ISIL sympathetic things, and maybe we should kind of look into this.
That would actually be kind of helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know somebody who like floats in a pool and then shoots out little ping pong balls or whatever to determine who's going to do what, that'd be super helpful. But if Facebook can have something like that, I don't think. I mean, I can obviously see the privacy issues and things like that with it, but I also think that if they can really detect a person's train of thought, at least just let us know so we can just look. We won't do anything. We'll be like, hey, this guy's posting some weird shit.
Right.
Maybe you should, see what he's doing.
And at the same time, like, you already consented to being investigated by an algorithm.
True. Yeah.
Because you're on Facebook.
Yeah, because you're on. Yeah.
And so, I don't know, maybe like, crime investigation and law enforcement could go in and be like, hey, Facebook, we're looking into this thing. You should let us in on it.
Right. And like, we also live in an age where, like, as sad as it is, most of our stuff, it's all actionary. So our cops react, right? They don't prevent. They try to, they can prevent, certain situations like, hey, I think I saw a suspicious guy walk into this place.
Right.
And then they could prevent like a robbery. But if like a homicide were to occur, there's no way they can just preemptively stop that. Exactly. Unless like a fight has broke out or something. The act of it has already started.
Yeah.
Just like if I decide to like leave right now and you just decide to stab me in the back, the police will react, right? They won't prevent this from
They
happening.
can't stop me. Plus, this is going up next week, and so they still wouldn't be able to tell
Yeah, so they have a lot of time, you know?
Yeah.
You have a lot of time to clean. I know people.
Yeah. How helpful to you would it be to sort of, like, be able to investigate people's, like, posting stuff? And
we have people that do that kind of, like, in terms of background investigation. If they have a person of interest, they'll flush their social media and things like that. But if there was something to see, like, man, this person's posting super weird, and we somewhat have people like that. There's people in law enforcement, that like, okay, this guy says that he wants to hurt John Doe a lot. Like, man, this, like, our president sucks, or the Secretary of State, blah blah blah, and then just keeps doing these constant things.
Like, man, I might buy a gun and do something about that.
These are, raise questions. Those are some obvious red flags, but it can also be like more subtle and something like, man, I've just had the worst day. I don't want to deal with it, or I can't take it anymore. And then it just gets this like self-destructive post more and more and more. And so I think something like that on a more personal level is probably way more important. Than, and I know that kind of sounds ridiculous than saying, oh, I want to hurt the president. But if somebody goes down like this 12-page tirade about how this person hates himself,
exactly.
They should probably get help, or at least, get contacted to see if somebody can do something. Because in the way we use social media now, we talk about everything, including our feelings and things like that now. And we share everything because it's so easy to. Because the smartphone, in my opinion, is the greatest invention the world has ever seen, period. And
like the internet, or like even more so the smartphone?
I think all the culmination of what a smartphone can do is amazing. And so like the way you can share all of this information, like, oh man, I just saw this cool bird, and boom, in that moment you can capture exactly what you have and send it to the world, right? That's phenomenal. In retrospect, you could be like, wow, I'm standing at the top of the bridge right now and I feel like jumping. In that sense, to polar opposite, things can happen in a situation like, okay, man, this person probably shouldn't do it. Is there any way I could do it if we can catch it beforehand by the way somebody posts? Not so much like really overt actions, but like really subtle ways of it. And it'd be cool if Facebook can do something like that. It would help out a lot of people, I think.
You can also like rely on a community of people to try and take care of each other, maybe, I guess.
I've seen some things like that where like a person would go down this like path kind of thing. And this person is like sort of a loner, doesn't have a lot of people to talk to. And so that person has no support, right? And no support structure system in their life. But they can use like a vlog or a blog or something as an outlet. But if those outlets aren't being monitored by people, if it could be monitored by like an algorithm through Facebook or something that someone can't physically see because nobody knows who this person is.
Yeah.
Because they have very few friends. They don't talk to anybody. They haven't added anybody else. So if that can detect it, like, okay, this person definitely needs help. But even though they have like 4 friends on Facebook, right? It's easier. And then we know, okay, this person, nobody knows him, but this person needs help. And so I think something like that would be super helpful.
Yeah. Maybe. Or it could just cause like a massive amount of guilt too.
I could see the backlash of Big Brother. Facebook is Big Brother.
Right.
But
it's like a nice Big Brother. It's like, hey, we're Facebook. We're trying to help you stop this person from killing themselves. Would you mind sending them a message or something?
Yeah. Send them a friendly message and say hello. Like, do it. You're like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Because that'll happen. For sure, people will do that.
Oh, man, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Looking at, like, Reddit and 4chan, just, like, the depths of the internet.
Yeah,
just like, yeah. Another point, how has or I guess you have a more objective perspective as far as like crime and race being connected. So how is being involved in this sort of affected that perspective?
It's pretty interesting. In terms of like race integration with crime statistics, it's just mostly objective fact that like black on black crime is just more prevalent. Generally. But there's also like, I feel like you can't compare most of these different crimes because I feel like each situation in itself has its own story and can't be tied to anything else.
Yeah.
Like if like a white person and a black person get into an altercation and then one of them kills another person, like let's say the white person takes out a gun and then shoots the black individual. Okay, so that's a white on black crime. But if it happens on the opposite, it's a black on white crime. But just because of the death alone skews other people into thinking there's so many white on black crimes. People just hate black people, but we have no idea why this happened.
Yeah.
They could be like, you took my calculator. I want it back. No, I didn't. And it doesn't. It can be something as trivial as that.
Yeah.
But because of the statistic that they create,
sure,
gives this giant assumption over the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And so it's people take these objective numbers and turn it into something subjective in terms of, yes, there's more like black on black crime or there's more black on white crime than there is white on black crime, only because they just do it more, period. And it's not just they're prone to it, they're genetically modified, It's not, it's just it happens more. Yeah. And they're just in a situation where they just do it more. Yeah. Or it's the other way, it's not reported enough.
Yes. That's a
just how it is.
very important point to make because a lot of people don't understand that statistics report what is, not what should.
Exactly.
And so, hey, look, the statistics show that there's more black on black crime. It's like, obviously black people are just horrible people to each other. It's like, no, what it says is that there's more black on black crime.
That's all it is.
The reason for it, there's nothing we can't say. These are just the numbers.
Exactly. And we do some sort of estimations generally to see, and this is more towards like sexual assault and rape statistics in terms of the actual reported numbers to actual numbers. Because a lot of departments and stuff like that, they like once a year or so, they they find all these allegations that never come to it, and they just kind of like, okay, if we assume that this actually did happen, what would the number be?
Yeah.
And then if we assume that all these things didn't happen, what would the number be? And then there was the actual filed cases. And so you kind of create this pivot. And so through that, they use kind of on everything. But for something like a black on white crime or a white on black crime, like, okay, these allegations were met. Did they do it? What are the chances that this could happen? If they did do it, what are the numbers? If they didn't do it, what are the numbers?
Yeah.
And so I think I don't remember what the website we use, but there's like the actual crime reports that we do have, and then there's like the estimations.
Okay.
But I would never trust the estimations. It's helpful,
Sure.
but it's just flavor text, I guess, in terms of the bigger picture, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I mean, like, you do have to acknowledge the fact that, like, these are not facts. It's an estimation.
Right. And I cannot tell you how many times it says estimation. It is all over the page. They are really trying to cover their asses. They're like, no, it's here. Estimation. This is all estimation. Every single stat has a star. And each has its own, like, footer. Like, this is just an estimation of blah, 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 blah. This is an estimation of blah, blah, blah. So I appreciate them really being thorough. They're like, listen, this is a guess. It's a guess. You want the real stuff? Go to the Uniform Crime Report.
Yeah. But yeah, we strayed a little bit from like the initial like philosophical points that I was trying to make. But my usual last question that I ask is, what advice do you have for people?
One, I'm sorry for teetering off so much.
Nah, that's okay. We both did.
And general advice, could it just be like about anything? I don't really know. Nobody's ever asked me advice before, you know? It's a new situation to be in.
You got shit together. Come on.
My life is actually chaos. Do they have to be related?
No.
Okay.
Should you give advice on something? Go for it.
Advice number 1, take care of your car. Get your oil changed a lot. Like, it'll help you generally.
I actually need to get my oil changed right now.
I mean, it's an important thing. I know I have to do. But it'll improve your car's life by a while. Also, if anything ever happens, by God, report it. Because reporting it in itself is 85% of it. Okay. So if you ever see something or something happens to you, report it. Just report it. There's no, there's, and this is, and I don't want to focus it more on people who've been sexually assaulted, but that is the biggest and the most underreported crime, pretty much in America, and if not the world.
Damn.
And it's so terrible to say. And then, you know, all this stuff that we're hearing from Hollywood and things like that.
Yeah.
Report it.
Yeah.
Report it. These people should be put away.
Yeah.
By God.
Right.
Report it. It's so important.
Right. Or even because there was a very specific situation through like IGN or whatever, and like there was some uncomfortable sexual misconduct. It wasn't like harassment or anything, but it was like sexual misconduct.
Like, let's say, like very crass jokes or something.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
The unwarranted like hand touching after a crass comment or something.
Sure,
you know?
Sure.
And so like she ended up going to HR, and HR looked into it and didn't really find anything. And then like they just kind of told him to like, oh yeah, you should like sit over there. And like she felt that this situation wasn't handled adequately, and so she like, you know, didn't want to go to her job anymore because she felt really uncomfortable in the situation. And so like that to me felt like just a really big miscommunication. I don't want to minimize the situation at all, but like if in the first place she had told him like, hey, I don't feel comfortable you like touching me like this.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the first layer of, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that what I was doing
Sure,
was making
yeah,
you
I understand.
uncomfortable. And then after that, like, if it continues, then you go to HR, then you go to the cops, then you like,
Right.
there's like these tiered levels, but like once you get
Right.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah. If it's
giant-
something small like that, absolutely. But if it's a big event,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that you absolutely don't want, absolutely go to that.
Yeah.
And because communication is so much. Like there's this quote that sticks with me, and it works with it. But it's from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, actually. The American version with Daniel Craig. If you've ever seen it,
I haven't.
it's one of the best murder mysteries
Yeah.
in the world. It's great. But the main character is like investigating this guy or this entire family of like this murdered girl, and one of like the main suspect guys who the main character knows at this point, like, okay, that dude did it, but he was sneaking around his house, and then he opens the door and he's like, hey, the killer, he's like, why don't you just come on in? But because the main character was like caught in the deer in the headlights look, he just kind of, he's like, all right, maybe he just doesn't know. And he comes in, they sit for coffee, and he's like, isn't it funny that people try to be courteous even though they're in a terrible situation? They know their gut feeling they should not do this, but because common courtesy tells them so. Man. And so I was like, yeah, that's so like, this situation's bad.
Yeah.
But your courtesy is like,
Yeah.
if you just do it, if you just go along it with it, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know,
Fuck common courtesy.
Yeah,
Get the hell out of there.
At this point where you don't feel uncomfortable, by all means, fuck any common courtesy at all. Just get to the point where you get safe. You know, that's how it is.
I appreciate that. Sonny, thank you for doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
This has been great. Where can we find your things, or I don't know,
I don't really have anything to
plug your stuff.
I don't really have anything to plug. I don't.
You made like a short film once, and then you did that thing today. So
I mean, yeah, but I don't want people to know about it because it's terrible. It's just like personal projects I have. I don't have anything. Just follow me on like Facebook, I guess. I need more friends, please. 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 Thank you. That's about it. I don't have anything.
all right, well, cool.
I just enjoyed being here.
I'm glad to have you.
Thanks.
I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm Sonny Summan.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music. I write songs. I'm a composer. And you can buy some of my music or not buy it, just download it, because you can pay whatever you want on Bandcamp. And I have a demo and a couple other songs, and you can pay $0 or pay $12,000. I don't care. You can, whatever. But I have music. You can listen to it. Enjoy. I always end my podcast with my 3 things. They sort of shape my life philosophy and the way that I try to treat myself and other people. Those 3 things are: love never fails. It's going to be okay. I might be wrong.